I said Brad.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. I did say Brad, I think. I called you Brad, didn't I?
That's why yours are bad.
Okay. No, mine are bad too. So.
Is that it? 2 and 2?
Oh, yeah.
Get ready to start.
Sherman's ready to go.
Good morning. We are here today to gather information on the results of two very important employment-related programs, the Homeless Veterans Reintegration Program, or HVRP, and the Veterans Retraining Assistance Program, or VRAP. Please note that I said that these are employment-related programs. VRAP is intended to provide short-term retraining to unemployed veterans who are of mid-career age. As of yesterday, VRAP data on VA's website showed that 138,162 veterans have applied for VRAP, with VA approving 121,060, and a total of 65,300 individuals are now enrolled in training. With 2/3 of the funded training slots now filled, I can call that a success, and I congratulate VA for the yeoman's efforts to fill those positions. I also appreciate the State Employment Services efforts to get unemployed veterans into the VRAP system. But now comes the real challenge, and that is to take VRAP graduates and put them in jobs for which they have been trained. This important task will fall largely on the shoulders of the Veterans Employment and Training Service at the Department of Labor and the DVOPs and levers as they fund in the State Employment Services through the Jobs for Veterans State Grant Program. We have been hearing for months that a major barrier to employment for veterans is the so-called skills gap. At this time now, we have thousands of veterans that have been given training for in-demand occupations that can help fill the skills gap, and it is up to vets to point these veterans in the right direction and to get the veterans back to work. During our last hearing on VRAP, we heard that there were data sharing issues between VA and vets, and I want to hear whether those issues have been solved. I also want to hear from vets how they are going to monitor the state's efforts to place VRAP participants in whom we have invested nearly $19,000 each in an effort to give them skills relevant to today's job market. Regarding HVRP, I hope that we hear that the program's performance is meeting the goals set by vets. I believe that we have been providing about $40 million per year recently to this program, and many homeless veterans, especially those with children, are sometimes difficult to place. Your grantees, as a result, must find ways to successfully serve this vulnerable population. One final thing before I yield to the distinguished ranking member, and that is to express my appreciation that in the future, representatives from vets will be the experts who will testify on programs authorized under Title 38. For example, vets should have a program manager for both VRAP and HVRP, and who would accompany Secretary Kelly here today, not the ETA. In saying that, I mean no respect to the ETA staff who are here today, but if it is Title 38 program, if it is a Title 38 program or requirement, I think we should hold the ETA, not any other, we should hold vets, not ETA or any other DOL entity responsible. Now, as a housekeeping note, I would let you know that we're going to have votes that are going to be called between 10:15 to 10:30. We will suspend this hearing for about 30 to 45 minutes, and then we'll resume immediately after those votes have concluded. I now recognize the distinguished ranking member, Mr. Takano, for any opening remarks he may have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning. I'd like to thank our witnesses for taking the time to testify and answer our questions this morning. We look forward to hearing from both agencies on their efforts to help veterans with these two very important programs. We are very interested on the implementation and progress that has been made by VRAP and where we are with regards to outreach and recruitment. VRAP is almost 2 years old and is paying for education and training for 63,000 eligible veterans, eligible veterans, with the hope of raising that to 90,000 by the end of October. Our questions today will center on how we can ensure that this strong beginning continues without interruption and without losing the money set aside for this program. We're also seeking an update on the Homeless Veterans Reintegration Program, or HVRP, which offers great services to homeless veterans. We would like to see how the grantees are performing and where they are located geographically. I want to take a moment to highlight the efforts of my colleague, Representative Brownlee, the ranking member of the Health Subcommittee, and thank her for the enormous amount of work she put into a package of legislation reauthorizing several vital programs that provide help and support for homeless veterans. This bill is H.R. 2485, entitled the Helping Homeless Veterans Act. We welcome all efforts from our members that seek to help our most vulnerable veterans. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Chicano. Today's only panel consists of representatives from the VA and the Department of Labor. I welcome back Mr. Kurt McCoy, VA's Deputy Undersecretary for Economic Opportunity, who is accompanied by Rob Worley, the Director of VA's Education Service and Assistant Secretary of Labor and Veterans Employment and Training Service. Also, Mr. Keith Kelly, Secretary Kelly is accompanied by Ms. Jerry Fiala of the Employment and Training Administration. Welcome to each of you, and let's begin with Mr. Coy.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Takano, and other members of the subcommittee. I am pleased to join you this morning to review the performance of the Veterans Retraining Assistance Program and to discuss the collaboration between the Department of Veterans Affairs and the Department of Labor in our efforts to ensure successful transitions from training to employment. As you mentioned, accompanying me this morning is Mr. Robert Worley, our Director of Education Services. VA is absolutely committed to ensuring the economic and meaningful employment opportunities of our veterans. VRAP provides veterans with the opportunity to build a strong foundation of training on which to build their careers. VRAP helps retrain those veterans hit hardest by unemployment, veterans ages 35 to 60. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, approximately 55% of reported unemployed veterans fall into this cohort. In just under 6 months of the law being enacted, VA and DOL collaboratively leveraged existing IT systems to begin accepting applications ahead of schedule on May 15, 2012, to meet the statutorily programmed start date of July 1, 2012. VA received over 45,000 applications in just the first 4 months the application was available. As of this week, as you mentioned, VA has received more than 138,000 applications and issued over 121,000 certificates of eligibility to veterans. Congress has authorized and the VA has provided over $447 million in program benefits directly to more than 65,000 veterans. Based on current application rates, we anticipate about 141,000 applications by the statutory end date of 1 October 2013. By the way, we continue to receive applications just this last week of about 1,000 applications a week, sir. VA expects to reach the 99,000 participants sometime in March-April timeframe of 2014, again based purely on straight mathematical projections. This success is a result of a significant outreach effort by VA and partner agencies. Prior to the inception of VRAP, VA entered into a memorandum of understanding with DOL to ensure veterans have a smooth transition from training to employment. Each week, VA compiles a report for DOL with the latest information we have concerning VRAP applicants, and we are nearing the completion of a new agreement to increase the level of data shared between our two departments. VA is also working with DOL to receive employment outcomes as it becomes available, and we defer to DOL to discuss the employment services offered through VRAP. Our outreach strategy and work has been extremely successful, as evidenced by the over 138,000 applications as of this week. At this point, more importantly, we have been working hard to communicate to those veterans who have received a certificate of eligibility but have not begun to use their VRAP benefits. We've sent 3 separate targeted personal email notes to those veterans. The most recent was just this last week, telling them that we will no longer be authorized to accept applications at the end of this month and end at VRAP benefit payments in March of 2014, just 6 months away. We want to make sure that all eligible veterans are able to take full advantage of their benefits. VA recognizes the great opportunities veterans have by way of utilizing VRAP, and we support pending legislation in the House and Senate to extend the program. We look forward to continuing our work with DOL to ensure veterans pursuing their training goals have a seamless transition into their chosen field of employment. Mr. Chairman, this concludes my statement. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. We would be pleased to respond to any questions you or other members of the committee may have.
Thank you, Mr. Coy. Mr.
Yes,
Kelly, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Flores and Ranking Member Takano and distinguished members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in today's hearing and for accepting the Department's late submission of this testimony. My name is Keith Kelly, and I am honored to serve as the Assistant Secretary for Veterans Employment and Training Service at the Department of Labor. I am accompanied today by Jerry Fiala, Deputy Assistant Secretary from our sister agency of the Department's Employment and Training Administration. DOL is committed to working with this committee to ensure that our nation's veterans have the employment support and the assistance they need to succeed in civilian life. As I discussed in my written statement, the Veterans Employment and Training Assistance Program and the Homeless Veterans Reintegration Program are important aspects of the Department's work on behalf of veterans and their families. I will use my time today to highlight some of the Department's efforts to implement and administer these programs. As many of you know, the Department of Labor has been working diligently with the VA and others to implement the Veterans Retraining Assistance Program, or VRAP as it's known, by several things: conducting outreach, developing guidance, identifying high-demand occupations, determining applicants' initial eligibility, and providing services to veterans before, during, and after they participate in the program. In addition, the Department contacts participants directly via email to provide information on employment services and encourages participants to contact their local American Job Centers to begin those job searches. Additionally, as well, once the VA notifies the Department that a participant has exited the VRAP program, the Department of Labor provides that individual's contact and related information to the relevant state workforce agency. States must then reach out to participants to offer them employment assistance and report those results of their outreach. The Department of Labor's responsibilities under VRAP have created some challenges for the Department, which I discuss in greater detail in my statement for the record. But among them, the Department of Labor has had to re-engineer or modify current data reporting systems and obtain approval for new data collections. While data is already being exchanged right now, the Department of Labor and VA are in the process of updating this memorandum of agreement to reflect an interagency data transfer agreement between the two agencies. DOL is also working with the states and territories to develop data transfer agreements as well as to further facilitate the process. Next, I'd like to discuss another important employment and training program, and that's assisting the Homeless Veterans Reintegration Program. Through HVRP, DOL grantees assist homeless veterans attaining meaningful and sustainable employment. HVRP is employment-focused, and each participant receives customized employment and training services to address his or her specific barriers to employment. This client-centric, hands-on approach has successfully helped place thousands of previously homeless veterans on the path to self-sufficiency. Within the umbrella of HVRP, the Department funds programs designated to address difficult-to-serve subpopulation of homeless veterans, including the homeless female veterans and veterans with families, and we have competitive grants for that program, as well as the Incarcerated Veterans Transition Assistance Program. As the committee is aware, the Incarcerated Veterans Demonstration Grants were authorized as a pilot program and are designed to support those incarcerated veterans who are at risk of homelessness by providing referral and career counseling services, job training, placement assistance, and other benefits. While my written statement goes into much detail about the Department's procedures, selecting grant recipients, as well as measuring their performance, I will just highlight the HVRP funds are awarded to eligible attendees through a competitive grant process during which there is a rigorous review. Similarly, once grantees are accepted to HVRP, the department works closely with them to ensure that they meet all performance outcomes to ensure the success of that program. The department does believe that the HVRP is an important and necessary program and does look forward to working with this committee to ensure continued success of it. In conclusion, the Department of Labor will continue to work diligently with this subcommittee and others in the committee to ensure that veterans and their families have the resources and the support they need to succeed in the civilian workforce. Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee, Ranking Member Takano, and this does conclude my statement. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify with you today and be happy to answer questions. Thank you.
I thank the panel, and I thank each of you for what you do to help take care of our nation's veterans, and I will begin with a few minutes of questioning. Secretary Coy and Secretary Kelly, this question is for each of you. Last November, when you testified before the subcommittee, a labor witness testified that there was a glitch in the data sharing agreement that would prevent tracking the success of VRAP participants. It is our understanding that this agreement has not been signed and is still lost in the bureaucratic shuffle for nearly 1 year after that issue was identified and almost 2 years since the passage of the VRAP legislation. Now, Secretary Kelly, I think you touched on that in your testimony. Let me start with Secretary Coy first. Mr. Coy, does the VA have any problem providing the data to labor, and have you provided labor with an approved agreement, and if so, when did that occur?
Mr. Chairman, first off, the straightforward answer is no, we have no problem providing that information to the Department of Labor. Since the inception of the program, way back in November of 2011, when the program was signed into law, we started working with DOL to put together what kind of information they needed. Since that time, we've been sharing data with respect to names and addresses and all of the information necessary for DOL to, in fact, take care of the employment end of it from their perspective. What this data sharing agreement does is provide the Social Security numbers to DOL and as well sort of set out the list of priorities and the rules of the road, if you will. We've been working vigorously back and forth with our colleagues at DOL. We have the agreement now is back in our shop. We got it back from DOL about a week or so ago. We sent it to our general counsel. We expect it to be signed very shortly.
Okay. And just to be clear, I think you said that you are providing Social Security numbers to
No,
labor?
sir. We are providing all of the information absent Social Security numbers.
Okay. Mr. Kelly, since VA is willing to provide the data, what is the problem at labor, and would the lack of a Social Security number hamper the tracking? And I guess the agreement now is over on their side, so it's out of your heads. Do you expect it would have a quick turnaround once it comes back? So really two questions. What is the problem? I mean, what are you hampered by not having the Social Security numbers? And number two, how quick would the turnaround be once you get it back from VA?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is a good question. I do want to emphasize on the front end, right now we are having reporting of the critical information that's needed to run this program. We are receiving, and that is being passed back and forth, and we're already receiving reports. The enhancement of the program with regard to the Social Security numbers, the department needs to develop the system to protect the integrity of the Social Security numbers within the department. We do not have that at the present time to receive and protect the integrity and the anonymity of the Social Security numbers. That is being finalized and being there. So, but I do want to emphasize we are receiving the reports of the critical data needed to pass back and forth between us and VA with the program. It is ongoing right now, and in fact, we have several states that have already sent in their preliminary data. The Social Security number will help enhance in the long-term haul with regards to the state workforce agencies as they do with their other programs to do the measurements going back and forth with the common thing. And we have to have the development of the IT system to accept that.
Thank you. Coming back out of the weeds for a minute and going back to the 50,000-foot level, Secretary Kelly, how would you give us a description of the results of the VRAP program from a vet's perspective?
From the vet's perspective, the VRAP programs, thank you, Mr. Chairman, it's a good question. From the vet's perspective, it does appear to me we're targeting an unusual audience out there, a little bit older in age, that probably this...
I'm sorry, I meant from the Veterans Employment and Training Services perspective.
Okay.
Okay.
So go ahead and please
Go ahead.
take that.
Go ahead.
From the Veterans Employment Training perspective, and here we're working diligently with VA on this program and our sister agency in ETA, which does have the data tracking management system of where we are co-located in all of the 2,600 American job centers for our DVOPs and leavers to follow up. We have received that. This is just beginning. There's a time lag that's necessarily been there in all of these programs with regards to when you're going to get the information upon graduation or somebody completing a credentialed program, and the time lag to receive the wage and hour records to go forward so we can go back against those particular service measurements. And I think we have things in place and on track to do that. It necessarily takes almost a year for somebody at the completion of a graduation, and at the time they offer to go into the program, they go through the training of whatever months up to a year that may be, and come back out. We're anxious to share that and look at the results and see how well it's been.
Okay. I thank the panel, and I now yield to Ranking Member Takano for 5 minutes.
Mr. McCoy, can you tell me, you're with the Veterans Affairs, right?
Yes, sir.
What does the memorandum of understanding between the VA and the DOL encompass? Just help me understand what it covers.
Absolutely. I don't have it here in front of me, but our data security people on both the VA side and the Department of Labor side. And what it does is it sort of sets out the rules of the road of how DOL can use this information, how we are to transmit it to DOL, and it provides the information, if you will, in terms of the VRAP applicants' information in terms of Social Security number, name, address, and so on and so forth.
Okay. When a veteran completes a program at a college or technical school, how do they get referred to the Department of Labor, and what services do they get?
I'll defer to our friends and colleagues at Department of Labor. When we get information on a veteran who's either left the program or completed the program, we pass that information over to the Department of Labor, and they reach out and contact each of those veterans. The Department of Labor has been extremely aggressive in terms of reaching out to veterans. As soon as a veteran receives a certificate of eligibility, we pass that information to DOL, and they reach out to that veteran basically saying, congratulations, you know, you've got a COE, and here's our services, and so on. When there's a change in that veteran's status, in other words, they've completed, they've dropped out, or whatever the reason is, we also notify Department of Labor, and they reach out again. So it's a continuous loop with respect to reaching out to those veterans. With that, I'll pass it to our colleagues at DOL.
Thank you, Representative Takano. With regards to when it gets passed back to the Department of Labor, and then the outreach goes back out to what I stated in my testimony, some of the reverse engineering to put information back out there. The Employment Training Administration, in conjunction with our DVOPs and leavers, we make a three-time efforts to reach out there and continue to find these folks after they've graduated or after they've reached their certification, and to see where they're at on that. And we do have, from a handful of states, it's very preliminary, some data that's coming in now upon that outreach efforts, and how many desire more services from our department, or how many are already found a job, and or how many are still in the program and trainings, and others that don't contact us back after several attempts to outreach. We've used emails. I think there was 3 or 4 email blasts that went out there, and telephone numbers to stay in touch with them. We think on the preliminary efforts from a few states that it appears to be working quite well.
Can you tell me who's actually eligible? Which veterans are eligible? All veterans, or just able?
It's unemployed veterans between the ages of 35 and 60 cannot have a dishonorable discharge, cannot have any GI Bill benefits remaining to them. And there's some other nuances, but those are the biggies, if you will, that makes a veteran eligible for the program. Unemployed, 35 to 60, and have no GI Bill benefits. And interesting aside, of those who have not been approved for the program, about 75% of those folks who have not been approved, the reason they've not been approved is because they already have GI Bill benefits, if you will, in their account. We consider that a really good news story. We tell them, go use your GI Bill benefits that you have now before you start using any VRAP benefits.
Do you expect to fill all the slots before VRAP, before the VRAP expiration date on October 1?
It's a good question, and it's a challenge. Right now, we're at 65,000. As I indicated in my oral statement, if we just did the math in terms of the graph of how many we're receiving, how many COEs, and how many people are enrolling at the same rate, we would expect to reach 99,000 about March, April timeframe. But I would caveat that, Congressman, by saying that, for example, if you began your VRAP training in January, you're only going to get 3 months of VRAP benefits. So one would expect anyway that a veteran who may have that certificate of eligibility may in fact kind of go, I'm only going to be able to use 3 months, maybe I won't begin training. So that's going to be the real outlier, is trying to see as we get down toward the end of the program how many people are going to continue to enroll knowing full well that they're not going to have all the benefits coming to them.
Mr. Chairman, my time is up.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Connell. Mr. Winstrup, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Coy, I have a question. I appreciate that the program focuses on the high-demand career fields. I think that that's important to the success of the program, obviously. Simple question, do you have any problem finding enough community colleges and vocational schools that provide that type of education in the high-demand career fields?
Thank you, Congressman. When we look at the high-demand occupations, there's about 211 of them. And so we have not heard from veterans that they're having difficulty finding a school. I think the challenge we get from many veterans is the requirement in the statute to be a 2-year school or community college. We originally used just community college. We converted that and we looked at it and are now accepting VRAP students into 2-year schools. And that was early on in the program. We had to make some adjustments with respect to that. But it, in some cases, has in fact been a challenge for veterans to say, I want to go to this university. So, for example, they may live across the street from a 4-year university, but live 25 miles from a 2-year or community college or technical school, and they're being told, you can't go across the street, you have to go to a community college, and that's in the statute.
Thank you. I yield back.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Winstrup. Ms. Brownlee, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to my colleague, Mr. Takano, for highlighting a bill that I introduced to extend the authorization for a year for several of the homeless programs. And actually, I think many of the VSOs would prefer to see that extension even longer than a year. But I was hoping that perhaps, Mr. Kelly, you might be able to comment on, if these programs aren't reauthorized, what you believe the impact is. And I had a couple of specific programs, sort of under that umbrella of homeless programs. One around the homeless female veteran program and how successful that program is. And also, I'm curious to know how many veterans have gone through the incarcerated veteran transition program and how successful you think that program is also. And maybe the Department of Labor has something to...
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chairman. With regards to the homeless veterans program, from our views and our data, we see it's very successful. It's got about a 66% success rate of people who've hit the bottom. To get them back into the economy, they're coming in at above minimum wages. They're getting okay salaries on that. And probably most importantly is when you measure it out at 6 months, are they still there? I might add, it was up in Maryland. There's quite a model program up there for homeless veterans where they actually house people there. And the success rates are going through, they can keep 200 on campus at one time. They got it, and I visited about 2 weeks ago. And so when you see it on the ground, what's going on out there, they really got a high success rate. And I guess for lack of a better word, have given these people their dignity back. And they're very proud of that. And it's very targeted, at least the job search and some of these other things with their training. And it's kind of tailor-made for each one what their issues are. To get back on that, but I do have to say I visited now. This is the third homeless veteran training program or homeless veteran facility, and the data supports itself, but it's very high. I will note you mentioned on the female veterans, we are seeing a growth in that area. The female homeless veterans is growing, and this particular grantee would love to sit there and try to see if they get more facilities, especially with women, so they would keep in touch with their children or with children. And so we're seeing it growing in that particular area and recognizes that there's certainly more work to be done on it. But those that participate and are in the program, for the dollar cost, it's a pretty high success rate.
And the incarcerated transition program?
Thank you, Madam Congresswoman. It's just about the same data on that, about a 60% success rate on those in the incarcerated program as well. And to capture these people, if that's the best word, before they get out on the street and to make sure that they can make this transition. The success rate and the employment rate is a little lower on the employment rate and the employment salary, but the success rate is again about 60-65%. I guess this is a case where you have a helping hand to get somebody to make that transition. So yes, we're supportive in the Department of Labor for the continuation. One is, you know, the incarcerated program is a pilot program out here with a hard stop on September 30, excuse me. And the homeless veteran, including the female one, we're supportive of the continuation of both of them. The cost benefit certainly appears to support it.
So in terms of our homeless population among veterans, it seems as though what you're saying, in many cases, we're improving and these programs are effective. I think it's fair to say at the same time we still have a growing population of homeless vets. So yeah, I think there's probably still more that needs to be done. I'm not sure that obviously if 60% is not good enough, 100% is what we're looking for, and the growing population of homeless and how we mitigate that and make sure that we can begin to decrease that population that is transitioning into a homeless status.
Do you want me to comment on that as well, or no?
Well, I have 17 more seconds, so yeah. I'll take the liberty to use them.
Okay, well, yes, my comment would be, yes, you're seeing the demographics change some on that now. On the homeless veterans, it's primarily the Vietnam era veterans, my generation of veterans. Now we're seeing with some of these younger veterans, and particularly the women veterans and their issues, is what the department's trying to address. Women's veterans issue broadly. It is growing and it is concerned, and it's we're fighting the goal of the president to have no homeless veterans by 2015.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Bradley. Mr. Runyon, you're recognized for 5 minutes. Just as a note, votes have been called, so we will let Mr. Runyon finish his questions, and then we'll suspend and resume. We'll advise the members that the Capitol Police have suggested that we take the tunnel this morning because there's a large demonstration at Independence in New Jersey. So, Mr. Runyon, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Kelly, about 30,000 to 65,000 people have enrolled are no longer in the training. How many of those have been placed in jobs? Do you have any metrics on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's a very good question, and I stated in my testimony, and I'm prepared to even go in further detail here, the time lag of when somebody enrolls in, signs up for the program, enrolls and takes the training, depending on the length of the training that they want, up to a year or an 8-week or 6 months training, the time they leave that and then the time that they go out there. There's a time lag necessarily, as with all the programs, when the wage and hour records that they do become employed or they do get involved. And so the time lag, that time to measure that is going to be necessarily, really, if you look at here, somebody going in the spring, it's 11 months to a year out we will get the data, the information on how successful they have been in becoming employed. The outreach is going on. That is going on. The data to come back with hard data to verify it, I think I indicated we have 3 states that have got some preliminary data, Texas, Kansas, and a northeastern state. I think it's Maine or New Hampshire. So the data is just beginning to trickle in now on some of those that may have at the very onset of the best case scenario got into the program coming out. I'd be most happy that Jerry here, who their agency manages that whole data system program, probably can give you a more accurate, succinct answer.
I'll be very quick, but just the third state is Kansas.
Okay.
That we have some very, very preliminary outreach information on. It's a very small sample size. It's about a little over 300 people, and it's outreach, remember, not outcomes. But of that very small sample, about 55% responded to the queries of the states and to encourage them to contact for the VRAP program to contact for if they needed employment systems. 50% of the people that were contacted and responded to the request said that they needed assistance. They then took the offer of assistance. 20% of them said, we already have jobs. We don't need assistance. And 30% declined any further workforce services. But this is a very small informal sample just of the outreach. In terms of, I just want to reinforce what Assistant Secretary Kelly said. There is about a year lag between the person who exits the program, whether they've completed or dropped out of the program, and us getting the first outcome data. We use the same measures for the VRAP program that we use for other Department of Labor programs, and we also, this data is reported through employers on their wage records. This is a cost-effective way of obtaining information data on 3 outcomes that we're tracking. We track whether or not they entered a job. We track whether they were retained in that job at 6 months. And we track at what was the average of the 6 months income for them. So 90 days after they've had their last service, they're considered to exit the system, and it's at that point that they enter into the outcome reporting system. And remember, there's a time lag for unemployment insurance wage records to be reported. So we will have outcome data, we'll have some minimum data for perhaps people who dropped out or had a very short training program and entered last August at the end of this year. And that outcome data will continue to track actually through 2015.
Mr. Kelly, do you believe the authorization level for the homeless veterans reintegration program is appropriate?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You said the reauthorization.
The authorization level.
For the homeless veteran reintegration program is appropriate? Yes, I do.
If the funding was increased, do you believe that you would see a decrease in competition for grant funding, which would lead to less successful program?
I didn't catch the last part. If you could restate that, that would help me.
If the funding was increased, yes, do you believe it would decrease the competition for grant funding, which would decrease, would make a less successful program?
If the thank you, Mr. Chairman, Congressman. If the funding was increased, there is more demand for the grants than there is supply of the money will cover. So we have seen this in the last couple of years. The amount of money available for the grant program to go out has actually gone down several $1 million. So really, the competition this last go around really got enhanced because there just was not the amount of money to take on any new programs out there. So long story short is that the demand still far outstrips the supply of some good grant applicants for the program.
Thank you. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Runyon. We have 5 minutes and 39 seconds left to vote. 342 members have not voted, so we're going to go ahead and recognize Ms. Kirkpatrick for 5 minutes for this to conclude this first round of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, the fact that we have any veteran in this country who's homeless is not acceptable. And I thank the panel for being here today and testifying. But I have to tell you, the statistics don't support your testimony. And let me explain that. In Arizona, 21% of the homeless population are veterans. That means on any given night, 2,213 people, veterans, who served our country, are sleeping in the city parks. And I have to tell you, when I drive by those parks and I look out and I realize that 1 in 5 are veterans, here's what I see. They don't have an address. They don't have email. Many of them don't have cell phones. How are you communicating with those homeless veterans, which I really believe are the core of homelessness, when you testify today that your communications are by email? That's not getting to them. So I'd like to hear from the Department of Labor and also the VA. How are you reaching those veterans who are sleeping in the city parks every night with no other form of communication?
Thank you, Congresswoman. An excellent question. I want to clarify something. When I said we're contacting about email, I was really referring to the VRAP program, not the Homeless Veteran Program, because you're absolutely correct. They do not have an email address, or very likely may not have one. And we fully agree with you that it's terrible that this many veterans would be homeless. And so in that, how do we do the outreach to the homeless veterans out there? You really have to go back and be networked with your local community. That's where it's got to come from. We can't see it from here exactly what's going on. And what I witnessed, I guess, in visiting 2 of these homeless sites, one in San Francisco and now this other one in Baltimore, they're really plugged in and with other federal agencies and others, but really at the local level out there, they're the ones that knows what's going on out on the street, for lack of a better word. And so it has to come at that local community government level, and then we can assist them then with the grants we have and whatnot. But they're the ones that are out walking around the communities, under the bridges. As a matter of fact, the one in Maryland, I think they stated that at certain times they take from the community, they have the working relationship with their city government, they take in surplus homeless people because they have the capacity, if they have the capacity during some of the winter months. So it really does come down at the local community level that contact has to be made to do that. To our American Job Centers and our DVOPs and Levers, they're plugged in to assist in that whole program, then to put them and say, here's a program that at the federal level that we may help in that. I hope that clarifies you how to do it, because you're right, they're not easy if it's 1 in 5 sitting on a park bench. How do you find them and get a hold of them to get them into the system?
Mr. Chairman, let me just close with one comment. I hope that you'll consider some innovative ways to reach these veterans. We recently had a stand down in my district, and I watched veterans who would not give their address, and I have to think that many of those didn't have an address. But they're proud. They're not going to go to those centers and ask for help. And so in a lot of ways, they're veterans who are off the grid. And so I just hope that you'll consider some innovative ways to respectfully and with dignity reach those homeless vets who are just off the grid. And I'll close with that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Kirkpatrick. I have polled the members of the subcommittee, and we have concluded that we will be finished with the first round of questions. I would like to say this with respect to the submission of testimony. We had asked that the testimony be submitted by noon on Monday. Unfortunately, we didn't get laborers until 5:01 yesterday. That made it difficult for me to be prepared for this meeting. So I'd ask in the future that you all please honor our request with respect to timing. In closing, I want to thank all the members for their attendance today, and I want our witnesses to know that the subcommittee will continue to monitor the progress of the data sharing agreement for VRAP, and I appreciate if you all would work together to try to conclude that as quickly as possible. I was glad to hear that you've come up with interim measures to deal with the data sharing. Finally, I ask unanimous consent that all the members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend the remarks and include any extraneous material on today's hearing topic. Hearing no objections, so ordered. This hearing is now adjourned. Thank you.
That's it.
So the recess or
I think we're done. You did a nice job.